Buffalo Boys Week 7, Episode 7. I'm excited to be here. I'm your host, Todd. This week we are without Ryan, so we're going to bring in our guest from last week, Jimmy Simpson. Jimmy, welcome to the Buffalo Boys. Welcome to your first time as guest host. No pressure. The whole world is waiting. What do you have to say? How was your weekend? Anything new?
Anything new? No, just hanging out with the kids, still golfing. But I'm glad I did so good last week that you guys decided to bring me back for 2 weeks in a row. Am I the first 2 week in a row guest?
I feel like Nixon may have been on the pod twice last year for trivia or the owner orientation, but can't quite remember. We'll give it to you though.
Yes.
All right. Before we kick it off this week, our sponsors always want to be heard. This week, we're brought to you by Mattress Blacks and Farmer Dave's as always. They didn't have any new ads for you this week, so just, keep them in mind when you're shopping, and maybe those promos from last week will still be around.
I think if you type in the promo $100 FAAB, you get a free mattress from Mattress Blacks.
Free mattresses. They will be flying off the shelf, Jimmy. That's impressive, Doug.
They don't last very long. They last about a week and a half. So,
all right. As always, Jimmy, I got to ask you, what are you sipping on?
So I am sipping on a glass of iced wine. It is a Duplin Black River Red. If you like sweet wines, Duplin is really good. And because it was brand new today, I need to put some ice in it.
Nice. I've never had ice in my wine, so I'll take your word on it. Duplin, that's in North Carolina, right?
Yeah, they're like an hour away from here ish. They got a golf course that a couple of the lads have been to. I haven't been yet, but the wine's very good.
Nice. I am doing another bourbon this week. I've got Michter's small batch. It's a classic go-to, nice body, good price point, and it is a good one. So, Jimmy, cheers.
Cheers.
All right. It's an audience favorite of ours, Jimmy. We've got Clown Owner of the Week, and we're giving you the honors this week to designate it. You're the first person outside of me to pick a clown owner, so I hope you're excited. I hope you put some thought into it. What do you have for me this week?
I am excited. So it was close. I think there were. It was actually a really tight week. I don't think anybody made some like egregious errors that cost them the week. But my clown owner left 6.2 points on the bench, and they ended up losing the matchup, and now have sole ownership of last place, Mr. David Adler.
Man, poor Adler. Rough start to the season for him.
Yeah, that was a brutal one, and I was going to pick Neil, but I think Adler's was a little more crucial to season-long success, so I went with Adler.
Yeah, you can't be feeling good at this point because he's really only got one loss to play with. Now, a lot of the sites like his remaining projections, so maybe he can turn it around. But
I don't like that because I play him this week.
Yeah, and you're not going to like what I have to say later either.
Well, that's okay.
But we'll get to that soon. But for every clown owner, there is a quality control coach. Who'd you give it to this week?
So, the quality control coach of the week, in a matchup where neither owner left a single point on the bench, this owner won a close matchup. That's right. It is you, Todd, to move yourself into a tie for second, a crucial win to go to 4-2, where neither you nor I left a single point on the bench. Congratulations.
It was a worthy fight, Jimmy. I'm happy to come out on top, and it took everything I had. It took a trade. It took waiver moves. It was tough.
Yeah, the trade was super important, and it ended up being your third highest scorer, really sealing the deal.
Shout out to Hoyle. Thanks for helping me out there.
Yeah, thanks for helping him out there.
With that, let's briefly recap my picks from last week. Last week, I didn't have a great week, Jimmy. I only went 3-4. I got myself, I always pick myself, so it's always a double whammy. And then had a couple big misses, a couple upsets this week, especially Rick. So that puts me at 28-10 on the season so far.
That's pretty good. I didn't make any picks live on air. Actually, no, I did make a pick live. I said that you would beat me, so I'm 1-0 on the season.
You have the best record in the league now.
That's right.
And then there's one quick hit stat that I wanted to throw out because I missed it 2 weeks ago when it happened, and I just saw it. But 2 weeks ago when Mims won, he passed Rick for more wins despite having played 2 less seasons. Incredible.
I hate to see that. But as both a fan of Rick and Mims and the person responsible for both of them being in the league, I hate to see it for Rick, love to see it for Mims.
All right, Jimbo, it is the meat and potatoes of the pod. The weekly review, the predictions, it's what everyone here is waiting for. They've been fast forwarding to this point on YouTube. They've been commenting their picks. We've had a lot of engagement recently. Shout out to all of our new fans. We have a lot of new listeners, so thank you guys. We're excited for you to be here. This week, we're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off with Ryan and Mike Simpson. Who do you got?
Starting with a layup here. I like it. Everyone knows who's winning this matchup. It's Ryan. But a few things that I want to say about this game. And I mentioned it in the group chat this morning. I think that Ryan's team is in trouble. He obviously is going to win this game, but I think that this could be the lowest score that the modern era of West Park Fantasy League has ever seen for a total score. I think that Christian McCaffrey might not play. Kirk Cousins without Jay Jetta looked bad. DJ Moore is without Justin Fields. I think he had 1 catch from what's his name, Bajent. It's not looking good for his best 4 players. I think that both teams score under 65, and we have a low scoring game. But Ryan will win easily.
That is a scathing hot take, and I'm here for it, Jimmy. I'm also on the Ryan side. How can you not be? But there's a little whisper in the back of my head. Who will Mike get or trade for?
Yeah, you have to assume Mike's going to get somebody.
Yeah. I don't believe, given his record, he's just going to completely punt this week, especially with what you're saying. There's a lot of potential for Ryan's team to flop. And if he only needs 20 more points, that's one good QB, a good kicker, and that replacement wide receiver. If he's willing to part with some of his bench, make a trade, trade a bye-week player, and he might be able to pull it out. But for now, I'm going Ryan.
I think, it's a good safe bet to go with Ryan. I think Mike's going to be working the trade block this week.
All right. Next up is a similar matchup. We've got me versus Dave. Dave is 10-6 all time against me. And tell me your thoughts.
And he'll be moving to 10-7.
There we go.
It's another one of those games where Dave is kind of full of bye week players versus your, if I'm not mistaken, full squad.
Except for Montgomery.
Okay, yeah, with the injured Montgomery. So I think that you are going to win this one easily, Todd.
I like to hear it, Jimmy. I like to hear it. And, obviously I got to agree. It's almost a slam dunk that I'm going to predict myself every week. I just can't bet against myself. No Monty, that hurts. I love the guy. You know how much I love the guy. But I've got some great matchups this week, and Dave doesn't. And he has 7 players on bye, just like Mike. This is bye apocalypse across the league, and some managers can handle it, and some don't. So we'll see. We'll see if Dave makes any moves. But I got myself this week. Moving on to Neil and Doug. Neil is 8-7 all time against Doug, so it's a close historic matchup. Who do you got?
So Kyren Williams unlikely to play. But that does not concern me. With Doug's running back talent on his team is a non-factor. So losing Kyren Williams basically is a net zero for Neil, and I think Neil's team is much, much stronger than Doug's. I have Neil taking this one by 15 to 20 points.
That's a pretty big gap, even for Doug. And let's remind the audience, Doug is 5-1, leading the league, and you've got Neil just trashing him this week.
That's right.
Yep. Bye weeks and injuries for Neil definitely are the storyline here. And it'll be interesting to see how he plugs the holes. But even more interesting to see if Doug uses waivers to get a QB with his full budget.
Yeah,
Will he
We'll see.
He can have any QB he wants. $100 maybe? We'll see.
Maybe if we put a reminder in this podcast and put the podcast out in the next hour and Doug listens to it, Doug, waivers run tonight.
I don't know. That's a stretch, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got Neil as well. Moving on to your game, Jimmy versus Adler. Adler has a pretty sizable lead on you with 9 wins all time against your 6. And he's also got the projections on his side. Let's hear what you think.
So I spent a lot of time looking at this one. Now, I think that Hurts and Devonta Smith could have huge games. And I think if they don't have 80 points between them, I think that I'm going to take it because the rest of his team has terrible matchups. He has wide receivers against Atlanta and Cleveland, tight end against Washington, and running back versus Baltimore, I believe. Those are all awful matchups. So he's got Hurts and Smith are going to have to carry him, but I have myself in a tight one. This could be a 5 to 6 point game, but I have myself winning.
Yeah, I almost would just bench Michael Pittman against the Browns. The Browns are a no-fly zone at this point. They are setting records with DVOA, with holding back teams from first downs, with basically every defensive metric, defensive stop percentage, defensive success rate. It's truly incredible, and they're fairly healthy still. So, yeah, I would probably bench Pittman if I was Adler. We'll see what he does, though. And you said you were picking. You said you were picking yourself.
Yeah, I'm feeling a big Chris Olave game. Chris Olave on a short week with a older running back who they've been liking the past 2 weeks. I don't think they're going to feature Kamara as much on this 5-day week. I think Olave is in for a get right game.
Are you worried at all for ETN this week, though?
No, never. Can't be worried about the number 3 running back in fantasy, Todd.
Yeah, but he has those blow-up weeks, inflating his overall value, and then just a couple lighter weeks. So we'll see, especially against that New Orleans front.
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's still leading the league in RB touches.
I'll take your word on it.
I don't see that changing. I know they're going to be probably less efficient touches this week. That the defense is good, but no, I think I get this in a tight one. I think Etienne's fine, maybe 12 points. But I think Olave is going to go for 20.
You know, I'm excited for you, and we're on opposite sides here. I've got Adler this week. Your points are valid, and it's a really tough one. No, not having Jamar Chase is obviously huge for Adler, and he definitely has some bad matchups. But I think you also have some bad matchups, like I was just hinting at with Herbert, ETN, Pickens, and Sutton, all potentially in some matchups that will hold down their average. I think ultimately this game flips, ironically, on Jahmyr Gibbs. If he's healthy and leaned on, it's going to be a big week for him, and he'll carry Adler to the win.
Well, I don't like that, but I guess I'd be fine with that. If my drafted Jahmyr Gibbs beats me, I guess I just have to live with it.
You'll still get the drafted points for the league record books, so it'll be good for you. Moving on to our next matchup, we've got Rick versus Mims. 1-3 all time for Rick. Who do you got?
So it might surprise you. I'm taking Rick here. Rick has some of the juiciest matchups I think I have ever seen. He's got Brock Purdy in a bounce-back game versus Minnesota. He's got Waddle, A.J. Brown, and Goddard in what could be a 60-point game, Miami and Philadelphia. Give me every piece of that, and he's got 3 pieces. And he's got Jacoby Myers versus Chicago. If he can find a better defense to stream this week, I think that he takes this in a borderline blowout over Mims. Mims has some awful matchups. He has Robinson versus the Giants, Diggs versus New England, St. Brown versus Baltimore, Hawkinson versus San Francisco. It's not looking good for Mims here. I think that Rick takes this by a good 20 points. And I mentioned earlier that Rick has been in the 110, 115 range for the past 3 weeks. He's turned it around, and it's all contingent on A.J. Brown playing well. But I think his team is looking good. They're looking healthy. They've got great matchups. Give me Rick.
Yeah, it's not hard to see, Jimmy. I wrote down beforehand, Rick will have to make a waiver move for an RB2, and that's a lot of projection. There isn't a whole lot of talent, and we'll see if he makes the right bids. But and not having a ceiling guy like Pollard will definitely hurt. But like you said, Waddle and AJ looking prime this week. The one thing that I would caution is I don't know if the Vikings will still be as good of a matchup without Justin Jefferson, like you pointed out. They had a hard time moving the ball last week, and maybe it's not as high scoring back and forth as, the projections might lead you to think. It should be close, and given Mims' luck so far this season, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rick come out of ahead, but I'm still going to give Mims a nod here.
Now, what are the odds that Mims picks the wrong quarterback again? Has he done that, 5 of the last 6 weeks?
Fairly high at this point. All right, second to last matchup here. We've got Nixon, our great commish, against Mr. Volatility, and that's Forrest. Nixon holds a 13-9 lead all time. Who do you got?
I'm gonna take Nixon. I think he needs to get a new defense. Like I said, I think Philly and Miami is going to be 60 points. I think the over/under is like 54 right now. I think that you don't want a piece of that defense, but you want every other piece of it you can get. And he's got Raheem Mostert. He's got Jason Sanders, which is not a great piece, but it's still a piece. And I think that he's got some pretty good matchups this week. I've got Nixon over Forrest.
We're on opposite sides again here, Jimmy. I've got Forrest this week, despite Nixon being on a hot streak right now. Leading the league with the longest active win streak of 4. But wide receiver and flex is looking really weak for him this week, and I think Forrest rewarded me last week going for him, and I think he's going to have another big week again. But with Forrest, you can never tell if it's a 60-point week or a 120-point week. So I'm just banking on another big week for his guys.
Yeah, Forrest is going to need to find a tight end. Currently doesn't have one eligible to play. Same with the defense. But I should mention that he also has Tua and Swift, pieces of the game that I want pieces of. This could be a high scoring affair.
I think so.
But
it's so much protection right now. Yeah. I think what we're realizing here, Jimmy, is it's going to be a huge waiver wire tonight, and Doug still won't be there. That's my bold prediction.
Absent. He will be hanging out with his boy, I think.
All right, last up, and maybe least, who knows? Depends on your opinion. We've got Hoyle versus AJ, tied all time. Big rivalry matchup here. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts. Who do you got?
It's funny to hear you say last and maybe least. This is my game of the week. I love this game. It's going to be a medium. It's going to be like a pillow fight, but I think it's going to be a tight one. And this is the game with the least amount of players on bye or injuries. So these are just 2 full healthy teams. But I'm taking AJ on the back of a huge Eckler game. I think Eckler is in the 25 to 30 point range, and give me AJ riding Eckler to victory.
It's almost like you're reading my notes, Jimmy. I wrote down AJ's team is looking healthy and strong, but you didn't have to tell anyone in this league how much you like pillow fights. Everyone knows it. For me, though, this week, I'm going with Hoyle. Despite having a healthy team, I think he has a bunch of bad matchups this week, whereas Hoyle's squad looks like everyone is primed for a big week. This will mark the beginning of a run for Hoyle.
All right. Well, I like that we were on the opposite side of a lot of these games. So that's nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to get a bunch of wins and come out ahead this week.
Yeah, somebody's going to be very wrong.
Indeed. Well, Jimmy, that's it. That's another one for the books. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience to close us out?
So I have a weekly wager. And I mentioned it before. I think that Mike and Ryan's game is going to be an all-time low-scoring affair. My weekly wager is a sleeve of golf balls that at least one team outscores Mike and Ryan's matchup.
One team outscores Mike and Ryan's matchup.
Yes.
Oh, that's spicy. And I think that team will be me. So I'm probably not going to take that. But post in the YouTube chat, post in the GroupMe, post on our fan page, wherever you want to post. We'll accept any and all wager wagers on the other side there. So once again, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to our loyal fans. Thank you to you for letting me beat you last week. And thank you to all the football players out there making this a fun thing to care about, to project worthless points on, and to fill our times. So remember, don't get buffaloed.